What's going on, everyone? It's your boy back at you again with another Tommy Reads X-Men. Today, we are looking at X-Men number 30 from March 1967, written by Roy Thomas with art by Jack Sparling. Filling in for Warner Roth on this issue. This one is called The Warlock Wakes. Start with the Danger Room, and they're just about to do some practice runs and stuff like that when they are mysteriously attacked by an unknown assailant. Who is it? We're going to find out in a second, all right? Relax. So he gets attacked. They get attacked, and right away the guy introduces himself as the Warlock. Now, this isn't Adam Warlock from, like, the Infinity Gauntlet and stuff like that, and this isn't the Warlock from the New Mutants. This is another dude. And there's a lot of Warlocks in the Marvel Universe, I guess. So he ends up, he comes to the X-Men to attack him because he wants him some Jean. Apparently, he says he's seen her before, he's attracted to her, he wants her to make her his queen. Yeah, I forgot to mention this, but for some weird reason, when he's like, I want Jean to be my queen, and he's gonna kidnap her, Professor X is like low-key jealous that this guy's making a move on Jean and he doesn't. That's creepy, son. Creepy. And he's got a lot of power, so automatically and very easily, he mind controls Jean. And she's like, oh, well, let's go. All right, let's go. And then, for some reason, he opens his portal. And for some reason, he brings Professor X with him. I don't know why. Like, maybe to gloat? But I don't see, if he wants Jean, what's the point of having Professor X with him? And then, since they were doing a training exercise and Angel was actually holding Jean's hand at the time, he gets transported too. Now, he's taking him to his lair, like all bad guys do. And, but they're flying, him and, the Warlock and Jean are flying on, I guess, unicorns or Pegasuses or something like that. It was a horse with wings, basically. And, it looked awesome, not gonna lie. And Professor X is on some kind of weird chariot, which kind of, to be honest with you, looked like a red version of his X-Men the Animated Series chair. I don't know if that's where they got the idea for it or whatever. And Angel is flying because he's Angel. So they get to the lair, and instead of it just being a regular-ass henchman lair, this is actually a old-timey English castle that he's built somehow inside of a mountain. But it's not completely old-timey. It's not like gargoyles or whatever, sorcery. But he's fitted the place with radar, with missiles, with henchmen, which means there's some kind of payroll, which means there's some kind of cafeteria or break room. I mean, he thought this out. You know what I'm saying? So then we get there, and finally someone asks it, like, what do you want? Like, you kidnapped us and brought us to who knows where. I mean, it's nice digs and all, but, like, what do you want? And that's when he first starts referring to Jean as his queen. Like, he wants to make Jean his queen, which she does not correct him in the whole issue. She's just like, that's not Queen Jean, sound good to me. But the professor starts getting him to monologue, and monologue he does, man. This guy ends up, he tells him straight off the bat that he just took the name Warlock because back in the day, he used to be known as Merlin. Merlin from the King Arthur stories, in fact. And, you know, he was frozen or some blah, 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 and then he woke up and he fought Thor, and then he got frozen again, and all kinds of shenanigans leading him up to this point where he woke up again. Hence, The Warlock Wakes, the title. But from here on out, I'm going to start calling him Merlin, because it's confusing with all the other Warlocks in the Marvel Universe. This dude, Merlin, okay? Angel, finally, after, you know, I would say a good 45 minutes in, it was like 5 panels or whatever, but like 45 minutes of monologuing. Angel's like, I've heard enough of this. And he tries to take out Merlin. And instead, Merlin puts the mind whammy on him. And suddenly Angel thinks his wings are on fire. And he starts freaking out. He's like, help me, help me. And like, yeah, he's losing it. And then Professor X kind of makes him think that there's water. So the professor decides that Angel's wings being on fire wasn't enough of a diversion, so he decides to fake an injury. So he throws himself out of his chair, which is back to being a regular wheelchair at this point, because I don't know if it was in his mind that he was flying in a chariot, or he really turned the wheelchair into a chariot, and suddenly it turned back into a wheelchair, complete with his blanket and all that. But, like, yeah, so they didn't really let me know what was going on with that. But he fakes an injury, and for some reason, now I don't know why he brought him in the first place, but for some reason, Merlin decides, you know what, I should probably examine Professor X and see what's going on with him. And in that one moment, mental lapse, he lets Charles, you know, his power come, because he had been blocking it this whole time. He lets Charles's power come through, and Charles uses that moment to contact the other X-Men, who just appear out of thin air. And they're like, boom, X-Men. And he's like, Angel's like, whoa, where'd they come from? And then Charles decides to monologue himself. He's like literally on this examination table with Merlin standing there shocked. He's like, oh yeah, so they were in a alternate dimension, some kind of negative dimension, you know, made by the Warlock over here, War Merlin, and and suddenly I called him back. What? Like, how, number one, is that like the negative zone from the Fantastic Four? Number two, how the heck could you possibly have known that? Like, did you just make it up and then Merlin co-signed it? Like, he's in the back like, yeah, well, he got it. I mean, so he does that. And then instead of just taking out Merlin like a team, like you should, Merlin's like, you know what, X-Men? I prepared a challenge for you. And then basically he wants him to go in this gladiator pit and fight a bunch of people. And instead of being like, X-Men attack, Professor X is like, nah, that sounds like a good idea. And so the X-Men voluntarily go into this pit, except for Jean, because he's like, my queen ain't, you know, putting hands on nobody. She's a queen, and I'm a treat her as such. And Jean's like, that sounds good to me. And he's like, Professor X, you want to watch too? And he's like, instead of, like I said, X-Men attack, X-Men, let's save the day and get the heck out of here. He's like, nah, cool. Like, I do want to see this. I want to see how it plays out. And then he clicks on something on his belt, which is the thing that makes him able to walk. And he gets up and he walks with Merlin all the way to this gladiator pit. I don't know how far it is, but like he walked over there and they're standing there watching the X-Men begin this fight. So it's Angel, Cyclops, Beast, Iceman. And they are fighting. Now this is badass. They are fighting henchmen, random henchmen, but they're on horses with laser lances. Like, think of Knight's Tale with lasers. I mean, none of the henchmen were like, William! Or nothing like that, which is weird in itself. Like, who yells their own name to get pumped up? It's not like I'm playing Madden. I'm like, Tubby! Not much, at least. But the X-Men quickly get the W on there, and they decide, you know what, now is the time to strike at Merlin. So they go to attack, and like always, Beast is the first one to get knocked out. He jumps up, boom, Merlin KOs him. Not so much with the punch, with like laser hands or something. Like, his powers are all over the board. One second he's like Professor X, the next second he's like Emperor Palpatine. But, you know, whatever. So Beast is knocked out temporarily. The other X-Men get in there, and Merlin decides, you know what? I know when the good's going. So he and Jean flee, leaving Professor X, and then the X-Men are chasing him. Now, for some reason, Charles's legs stopped working again. Like, I don't know if it was like a battery problem, like he didn't have that Duracell or whatever. He didn't, you know, Cerebro USB charge it up before he went. Whatever he's got going, his legs don't work now when the X-Men are around. But when no X-Men were around, he was like, you know, dancing a jig and like, you know, he was like chopping it up and, you know, doing the Lindy hops. Anyway, you can't see it, but my legs were really moving under this thing. So his legs don't work, so somebody's got to carry him. Now, once the X-Men find out he could walk like this, I mean, is he faking? We don't know. Probably not. You know, history has shown us he's not. But, I mean, it's just a little weird that his legs worked 5 minutes ago and all of a sudden he's like, carry me. But, so the X-Men go through these rooms and there's a bunch of booby traps set for them. Decided to Home Alone the X-Men because there was all kinds of stuff swinging and stuff. If they had micro machines back in the day, he would have put them on the floor. You know he would have. And it's then, only then, do we get to Jean's bloop, 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 her mind thoughts, and she's like, oh, the X-Men might get hurt. I should resist his mind control. What have you been doing this whole time? You've been like, were you going with this? Were you like, oh, wow, he's really nice. He's calling me my queen. And like, Ted's only like, hey, gal, or whatever. But like, oh, dang, this castle's nice too. I can get used to this. Servants, it's Rib Night? Like, what are you doing that you were not trying to resist his mind control till now. And then in that second, he's like, oh, Jean's trying to resist my mind control. And he turns on her, tries to kill her, but Cyclops comes through with the optic blast, saves his lady love, who he's like, I gotta tell her soon. And Jean's later on is like, wow, did Cyclops really like me? So we go back and forth with no progress on that. But Merlin ends up getting defeated through the X-Men doing some superhero stuff? No. Through, you know, a giant boulder hitting him? No. In the end, Merlin is defeated when the Beast takes Merlin's cape that he's rocking, because he's a bad guy, so he's got to have a cape, and throws it over his head. You know what? Ah! Whoa, there's a cape over my face and I can't see now. I'm losing my mental powers. And decides, since that happens, that he can't fight anymore, and then Charles mentally puts the KO on him. Mentally. So he's down and out. The X-Men are rounding up the henchmen. And then the second to last panel, Charles is like, now we should concentrate on that Factor 3. And that was from 2 issues ago, and we still have not got to it. Why tease us for 2 months if you ain't going through with the story? End of issue. Final thoughts coming up next. All right. This issue was a 7 out of 10. And I'll tell you why. Because it'd be a pretty boring video if I just said 7 out of 10 and sat here in silence. But 7 out of 10, there was really good action. As far as one and dones go, this was a really random one and a really good one, though. I mean, Merlin as your villain was pretty cool. I mean, I remember, maybe it's just because I remember from Disney, like Sword in the Stone and stuff like that, but or the Christopher Lloyd played Merlin, I think, in King Arthur's Court with the dude from Rookie of the Year, you know, Rowan Gardner. Anyway, Merlin's always kind of been a good guy, but then there's some other stories I have read where he's the bad guy or whatever, but like usually in my head I think Merlin, old guy beard, oh, you know, he's pretty good, cool wizard or whatever like that. Like, not Dumbledore level, but up there. Anyway, also, Jack Sparling's art was pretty good. I looked him up, and he's done a bunch of comics. DC, Disney comics, you know, other Marvel stuff. But this was his only issue of X-Men he ever drew. Now, I feel like when they got to him, because they said, like, Warner Ross finishing up the next issue or whatever. But, like, when they asked him to do the issue, they're like, what do you like to draw? And he's like, Merlin? I don't know, knights and stuff? And they're like, yes, yes, go, X-Men versus Merlin. And then we went with the issue. So as far as one and dones, this was one of the better ones. I enjoyed it. If you like what you see, please take a moment to subscribe. Down here, hit that notification bell that's in the corner. And yeah, we got a lot of great things coming up in the issue. Got some ChubCon reviews coming up. If you like food reviews, check that out. Check out my random reads to see what I've been reading or what I'm going to read in the future. Stick with us to the next issue. Later.